A committee given the task of appeasing Rivers State Governor S0LV will begin sitting on Monday in Abuja. Mr. WIKE had been at daggers drawn with the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), Atiku Abubakar, since the latter piped him to the presidential ticket in Abuja on May 29th. Atiku managed to make the governor even angrier by the manner in which he picked Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa as his running mate, rejecting a recommendation to placate Mr. WIKE with the position. The angry governor, over the following weeks, refused to speak with Atiku or his emissaries and was instead sending cold threats to the candidate and party. The issue has escalated into a major crisis in the PDP as a group, which Mr. WIKE leads, is demanding the immediate reconstitution of the party's leadership. To be fair, the crisis is an unavoidable consequence of Atiku's victory in the primary election. His nomination put all the major positions in the party in the hands of northern members, while pushing for the nomination of the party's standard bearer for the 2023 election from the south, in line with the PDP's principle of power rotation between the two regions amalgamated in 1914 to form Nigeria. Southern members had backed Iyosha Ayu to become national chairman after Uche Secondus, a southerner from Mr. WIKE's Rivers State, was sacked from the position in a leadership crisis. Ironically, however, Mr. Ayu, who is from Benue State in the North Central Zone, supervised the jettisoning of the rotation principle, thus allowing his long-time associate Atiku from the Northeast Zone to once again take presidential ticket. This has given the northern wing a clean sweep of the key national positions. Now, the chairman of the party's board of trustees, Wali Jibrim, is from the same North Central Zone as Mr. Ayu, while the chairman of the PDP Governors Forum, Aminu Tambuwa of Sokoto State, is from the Northwest. To redress the lopsidedness, Mr. WIKE and his friends want the northern and southern wings to swap their party positions, beginning with Mr. Ayu yielding his office immediately to a southern member. Mr. WIKE's aide said Atiku had agreed with him on this at a meeting the two men held a few days after the party's presidential primaries. However, Atiku appears to no longer be committed to that agreement, if ever he was. He now supports Mr. Ayu and other members of the National Working Committee of the party who insist such changes should wait until after the general elections next year. But the WIKE group senses mischief in that position. It fears Mr. Ayu would stay put if the PDP loses the February 2015 presidential poll next year. On August 12, a former Minister of Information and National Orientation, Jerry Gana, who is one of the many prominent leaders of the party on Mr. WIKE's side in the crisis, got the two political gladiators to huddle at a meeting in his house in Abuja. That meeting produced a framework for reconciliation between the two men. They agreed to appoint 7 members each into a committee that would listen to the grievances of Mr. WIKE and his friends and recommend measures for amicable settlement. The recommendations of the panel would be binding on Atiku and the party. The two men further agreed. Atiku has appointed Adamu Fintiri, the governor of his home state of Adamawa, to lead his own team in the committee. Members of the team include a former Senate President, David Mark, a former Cross Rivers Governor, Liel Imoke, a former PDP governorship candidate in Ondo State, Eitayo Jegede, and a party leader from the southeast, Ben Obi. On his part, Mr. WIKE appointed 3 former governors, Shegun Mimiko of Ondo State, Donald Duke of Cross Rivers, and Ibrahim Dankwabo of Gombe, a former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mohammed Adoke, and a former member of the House of Representatives, Nena Ukeje. Confirming the development while speaking with journalists in Yola on Saturday, the Adamawa governor said he has been in Port Harcourt as part of the assignment to speak with Mr. WIKE. Mr. Fintiri said the committee members had started talking and were hopeful that the two men would sign a peace accord soon. I can assure you that we've started talking and we'll soon solve the problem and become one family. I've just returned from Rivers State where I met with my brother, Governor WIKE. I can guarantee you that the reconciliation process has begun. It is going well and PDP will succeed, he said. Mr. Fintiri added that his unique position as a friend to both Atiku and Mr. WIKE places him in a good position to broker a truce between them. Politics is all about discussions, meetings, and give and take. As leaders, we'll ensure that we put everything into this reconciliation to ensure that Atiku and WIKE's camp are back as one and united party members for the success of PDP, he said to journalists. However, looking from the outside, the situation on the ground seems to belie Mr. Fintiri's optimism. In fact, it will come as a surprise to many that both sides remained in contact after that meeting at Mr. Gana's house on August 12th. The tone of Mr. WIKE's statement and political engagement has hardly changed since then. At the commissioning of some projects in Port Harcourt, which invited a former governor of Sokoto, Aliyu Wamako, and Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, Mr. WIKE remained bellicose in his political statements. Aside from both dignitaries being leaders of the ruling All Progressive Congress APC, they are also known foes of Sokoto Governor Tambuwal, a principal target of Mr. WIKE's anger in his beef with Atiku and the PDP. Mr. WIKE had described Mr. Tambuwal's last-minute withdrawal from the presidential race and endorsement of Atiku at the PDP convention as both a breach of the rules of the convention and a stab in his own back. However, the pressure for reconciliation is not only on Mr. WIKE's side. The PDP has always drawn one of its biggest haul of votes from Rivers, with the party facing an unprecedented challenge in another stronghold in the person of Peter Obi of the Labour Party, and with its share of the votes, particularly in Kano, under potential erosion by Rabiu Kwankwaso of the New Nigerian People's Party (NNPP), keeping hold of Rivers may be critical to success at the poll next year. The opposition's chances are always brighter when it is united. That is the reason why many believe that the LP and NNPP may hurt the PDP more than they will the ruling party, APC. Mr. Obi appears to be running strongly in his home southeast and among Christians in some other parts of the country. Most of the votes from these areas went to the PDP and Atiku in 2019, but with the two newcomers likely to draw away some of the votes from those banks, the PDP will do all it can to protect its other bastions. Add to the fact that Mr. WIKE is also one of the biggest sources of fund for the party, which also makes his support essential. That makes appeasing him worth the effort.